The various universes are filled with wonder and delight. The many adventures and heroes I have seen are but one way things could have gone. However, one different choice can give birth to a whole new history and give the multiverse new heroes. As for me, these are my stories. I observe all that transpires here, but I do not, cannot, will not interfere, for I am the watcher of this dragon world. Well, unless it's fun to interfere, that is. So accompany me through these journeys into the what-ifs that are out there.
A year prior to Lord Beerah's waking up, Goku and Vegeta find themselves training in an open field. Each punch cut the air like lightning, pushing each other to the max. Vegeta had asked Goku to use Super Saiyan 3 during the battle, a transformation Vegeta himself had not yet been able to achieve.
Come on, Vegeta, is that all you got? I'll reach a form beyond yours, Kakarot!
As the battle went on, Vegeta slowly got stronger and stronger, but it was obvious that the many times they had fought together was not enough. They needed to find a new height to reach. While the battle continued, they heard their names being called by two small voices, Goten and Trunks. Goku stopped himself in place, but Vegeta didn't stop and punched Goku square in the jaw, making him bite his tongue and return back to base form. The two yelled at each other, but stopped once the kids reached them. Trunks and Goten looked very excited and explained that they had been training and playing together when they thought of something. Whatever happened to the rest of the Saiyans? They had heard about Frieza before, but Trunks snickered to Goten, saying that Frieza was killed by a future version of himself. Goten replied that he knew, but that wasn't the point. He had heard that story many times before. Goku looked at Vegeta to take the lead on this one, slapping his back. Vegeta was annoyed, but knew what to say.
Well, kids, the Saiyans were a true warrior race. We had a long history. We came from planet Sadala to planet Vegeta, where we were recruited to the Cold Empire, which eventually became the Frieza Force. Sadly, your grandparents and the rest of the Saiyans were wiped out by Frieza long ago. Us, my brother, and Gohan are the only ones that remain.
Goten and Trunks looked a little disappointed. They wished that they had gotten to meet them. They want to learn more about their history. Goku thought to himself for a bit while the kids ran away. Why didn't Vegeta ever think about bringing them back with the Dragon Balls? Goku asked that same question out loud.
I didn't do it because I was far more interested in becoming the strongest and killing Frieza. Plus, the Saiyans weren't exactly pleasant people. They were horrible conquerors.
But Goku thought that this was a great chance to battle some new opponents, maybe even train them to become great challengers. Vegeta rejected the idea completely, but Goku was already on his way to Capsule Corp. Vegeta eventually caught up to him, telling Goku that he really needs to think this through. Goku turned to him, more serious than before, and said that he had already thought everything through on his way to Capsule Corp.
I don't believe the Saiyans deserve to die like that either. Many were innocent, right? I think they deserved a second chance. Vegeta, you changed. They could as well.
Vegeta looked to the ground, quiet. He didn't want to admit it, but he also wanted this. There was a lot racing through Goku's mind. Perhaps he could meet his mom and dad. He never cared to know them, or even wonder who they were. But if given the chance, it could be fun. It would take a lot of work to train all the Saiyans, but given enough time, they could even become awesome opponents. Goku and Vegeta stood there, thinking quietly. Goku knew that Vegeta's mind was already made up. After all, he had a far deeper connection with the Saiyans than himself. He remembered the first time Vegeta died, how he pleaded with Goku to avenge their race, even mentioning his own father. Goku nodded at Vegeta, and the two headed out to find the Dragon Balls. Finally, once the 7 magic Dragon Balls were reunited, Shenron was summoned. Our heroes had 2 wishes in mind.
State your wish.
Hey, Shenron! Our first wish will be to bring back planet Vegeta, the one that was destroyed by Frieza long ago.
Our second wish will be to return all the Saiyans that died on planet Vegeta's final day.
The Dragon Balls spread through the world, with Trunks and Goten wondering if it really happened. It's not like they could see those Saiyans. Gohan, who had accompanied them to find the Dragon Balls, told Goten to be patient. Their father would be able to teleport them to planet Vegeta in no time. Goku awkwardly laughed, realizing that he had no idea where to even look. To get the clearest image possible, he teleported over to King Kai's, whom he asked where the old planet would be. King Kai was confused, but got extremely angry once he realized what was happening. How could Goku bring back a race of maniacs? Goku turned to King Kai and smiled, asking him to have a heart. After all, Vegeta was able to change, and he was the worst Saiyan of them all. King Kai reluctantly agreed, and pointed Goku to where planet Vegeta reappeared. Soon after, Goku, Vegeta, Goten, Trunks, and Gohan appeared on planet Vegeta. They made sure to teleport where the least amount of people would be, as to not draw that much attention, but it seemed like there was a lot of chaos going on. People crying, others laughing. A lot of Saiyans were descending down from the sky to meet their families again. One Saiyan in particular had his armor nearly completely obliterated, and he rushed down in celebration. He reached a woman in an apron, who was looking into the sky with wonder. The two embraced, hugging each other tightly. Some way, somehow, Frieza was gone. They didn't remember what happened, only that they were sure they had been killed by the Emperor. Some seemed to remember a giant man deciding their fate. Others remember a plain of gorgeous forest, but it was all very nebulous. Goten and Trunks looked in excitement. These were Saiyans, huh? Trunks recognized the similarity between their armor his father wore and those the Saiyans used, while Goten recognized a lot of similarities between the Saiyans in the village. Vegeta grabbed them by the ears before they could run off, making sure to at least explain a little further of their culture. This village was for low-class Saiyans. Most were fighters, but a good portion also simply worked for the community. The prince then pointed over at the castle on the cliff, which was the castle of his father, King Vegeta. Goku whistled at the sight of the giant castle. No wonder Vegeta had such a huge ego. Gohan jumped in shock when he heard something, a voice saying, "Kakarot!" It was the woman they saw earlier. She was holding onto the man tightly, pleading with him to go find Kakarot. Gohan's eyes widened in realization. Those must be his grandparents. He wasn't sure what the right move would be. These Saiyans seemed to have no knowledge of the passage of time. Seeing his father all grown up would be a giant shock, not to mention Raditz's demise. Vegeta and Trunks separated from the Sun family, saying they were going to go check out the castle alone first. Goku waves goodbye to Vegeta loudly, making everyone else stare at the flying prince. But they laughed. No way that was the king, eh? He didn't have a mustache. Must be a cousin or something. This did draw the attention of the Saiyan couple, which made Gohan jump back. They were staring directly at them.
Soldier, what was that? What are you wearing?
Goten and Goku turned to look at them, their eyes widening as the spitting image of Goku himself approached them, a man with an imposing walk and a scar across his cheek. Goku was surprised. The Saiyan didn't seem very amused.
Me? I'm Goku, but you can call me Son Goku. His name is Son Goku. Right, Dad?
The man tilted his head curiously, circling around Goku, stroking his chin. He commented that he must be one of the Saiyans sent away at birth to take over a weak planet, because he had never seen him before. And what kind of name was Goku? Gohan introduced himself as well, saying that it was an honor. The man nodded, explaining that it was unusual to see Saiyan with a two-visor scouter, referring to Gohan's glasses. Gohan also began to introduce Goten, but he was interrupted by the woman who hugged the man earlier. She jumped at them, hugging Goten to the ground with tears falling from her eyes. She yelled out, "Kakarot, Kakarot!" Goten looked very confused. What was Kakarot? Is that something you eat? Bardock pulled her away.
Come on, Gine, that's not him. A lot of us low-class Saiyans have similar features, although the resemblance is uncanny. This kid looks to be a few years older than the boy. Let's go.
Wait, you didn't tell us your name.
Huh? My name? My name's Bardock. Take care of yourself.
Bardock and Gine rushed away towards the landing zones. Gohan explained to Goku why he did that. These Saiyans had just been revived. It's gonna be an incredible shock if the first thing they see is a grown-up son of theirs. Goku didn't quite get it.
You don't get it? Dad, those were your parents.
My parents?
Yes, and we have to be careful how we approach.
Are you kidding? I bet he's super strong! Wait up, Bardock!
Oh, Dad.
At the same time, Prince Vegeta and Trunks stepped through the doors of the castle. Inside, the throne sat imposingly. But the king was not sitting there. Instead, he was yelling and giving commands at every soldier in the room, asking them to investigate what exactly happened to Frieza and make moves according to it. Vegeta was struck, much more than he thought he would be. He hadn't seen his father since he was a little boy, and now he had a boy of his own. It was a very strange feeling, and he honestly had to fight the urge to simply hug his father. Not that he would ever do it. His father wasn't exactly the most present, even when he was a kid. But something the king said stopped him altogether.
If Frieza is really gone, then his empire will be ours to take over.
The king yelled at one, then turned to another, and finally, he turned to an unknown Saiyan, yelling at him to get ready to send scouts over to find the Ginyu Force. But the man simply smirked.
I don't think so. You're not gonna be taking anything over. Excuse me, who the hell are you? Guards! Don't bother, King. There's nothing you can do to hurt me. You see this kid? He killed Frieza.
What? This strange-haired child? Don't make me laugh.
Well, a version of him at least. Either way, you better stay put. We didn't bring you back so you'd bring more chaos into the galaxy, Father. Father? What are you on about? My son is 7 years old, on a mission with Nappa and Raditz. Yeah, that's me, Father. It has been many, many years. Welcome back to the realm of the living. Not only were my allies and I able to defeat Frieza, but we also achieved the legend. You're speaking nonsense! Guards, attack him! Trunks, on guard!
Meanwhile, Goku reached his father. The two stared each other down. Bardock was confused, but he recognized the way Goku looked at him. Those were the eyes of a Saiyan eager to battle. Bardock himself had his blood pumping. He had just faced off against part of Frieza's army, staring death in the eyes. He had all this energy and nowhere to use it. Bardock dropped the bag he was carrying to the floor and cracked his knuckles. Gine pulled his arm, telling him that they needed to go find Kakarot, but Bardock smiled at her, then at Goku.
Come on, Gine. If Kakarot's anything like you or I, then he'll be fine. I have high hopes for that kid. He'll be a strong Saiyan and will make us proud. He can take care of himself a bit longer. I'm gonna show this guy just how strong Kakarot will become. Heh, that's the spirit. Bring it on, Bardock!
The Saiyans from the village all looked up in awe as Goku and Bardock clashed overhead. Gohan facepalmed, while Goten cheered on his father. Goku was holding back. But this battle wasn't about raw power. It was about testing his skills against one of the most formidable Saiyan soldiers in history, his martial arts, his ki usage. It was at full display. Surprisingly, Goku recognized the way Bardock moved in various ways. The heaviness of his punches and kicks reminded him of his brother, Raditz, while the skills he showed in the ways he used martial arts were more reminiscent of himself. Bardock was a very skilled fighter, to be sure, even if his power left a lot to be desired. Goku was taken by surprise a few times, noticing that Bardock had a keen eye for rapid movement. No doubt, a product of having grown up largely without scouters, not to mention the lack of ki sensing. Goku dodged a punch to the jaw and responded with a kick to the stomach, but Bardock grabbed his leg, slamming him down against the landing platform. Goku wiped some sweat of his brow. This was very exciting. He never wondered who his parents were. All he ever needed was Grandpa Gohan, but he had to admit it. Seeing the man he was the legacy of was very exciting. That's when they heard a boom coming from the castle. The Saiyans looked up to see King Vegeta and his guard being blasted off from the stained glass window. As the smoke cleared, the Saiyans shook. There was a warmth they had never felt before, a power unseen in a millennia, but there was no doubt about it to them. The figure of Prince Vegeta was engulfed by smoke, only for the smoke to be pushed away by the eruption of a golden flare. Vegeta and his son, Trunks, stood back to back, showing this civilization of old the truth of the legend, the Super Saiyan. Everyone quieted down as the king and his guard stopped themselves in midair. They were lucky to be alive, since Vegeta had only done that to scare them.
You can't be. It is impossible. Look closely, Father. This is the power that defeated Frieza, the culmination of all the hopes and dreams of the Saiyans. Then it's true. No one but my own blood would be able to achieve the legend. You must really be my son. And that boy, my grandkid? Ha! You're right that we are your kin, but this form is not exclusive to the elite. Sorry to disappoint, but even a low-class Saiyan can overcome an elite if he trains hard enough. Right, Kakarot?
Right. Yeah! Kakarot?
Before his very eyes, not only did Goku turn into a Super Saiyan, but also the child that was with him, and the one with glasses. 5 Super Saiyans. It seemed impossible, but this day was weird enough as it is. But the legend didn't matter to him. What mattered was the name, Kakarot. It was impossible. Gine wasted no time asking questions, jumping onto Goku and wrapping her arms around him, hugging him tightly. She didn't need to ask, because those soft eyes she had only ever seen in another Saiyan, her second born. Goku nearly tumbled to the ground, but was able to hold her. She knew this was insane, but she had to ask if it was really Kakarot.
Yeah, I'm Kakarot. I guess that makes you my mom, huh?
Gine cried loudly while hugging her son, while Bardock took slow steps towards him. The death ball sent them all into the future? No matter. While Gine hugged Goku, Bardock put one hand on Goku's back and smiled.
I'm glad you survived, son. I am proud.
The king was humiliated, but he had to accept defeat. All these Saiyans gather around on the landing platform, where the king, Gine, and Bardock stood up at the front, while Vegeta explained everything. This was what Gohan was trying to avoid. After a long explanation, everyone went quiet, but some started to cheer the Z Fighters. They had technically saved them all. They were held as their saviors, but Goku and Vegeta dismissed it. That's not what they wanted. They brought them back because they deserved a second chance. Without Frieza to force their hand, they had this time to prove they could be a peaceful civilization, to not conquer any worlds, to just improve themselves, battle against each other, not other planets. But everyone looked perplexed. All they ever knew was conquering. But they couldn't defy a Super Saiyan, could they? Vegeta turned to his father with a sad look.
Father, we never had the best relationship, but do not make me regret this decision. I know there is good in every Saiyan here. I was once a vicious destroyer like you, but I have a family and have saved the universe many times. Us Saiyans can be powerful warriors that enjoy the battle, but we do not need to hurt others to do so.
Vegeta extended his hand out to his father, smiling slightly. King Vegeta scoffed and slapped the hand away, but there was not much he could say against a Super Saiyan. Vegeta didn't respond, but to avoid the awkwardness, Goku stepped out the front and asked, "Who's ready for some training?" This confused the Saiyans, as they never really trained. They were naturally gifted, so training was never necessary. Goku promised them that this would be a lot of fun. Gine pulled on his arm, saying that she had so much to ask. Goku smiled back. He explained that she can ask anything she wants while they fight. Thus, nearly every Saiyan followed in Goku's footsteps, as he showed his father and mother just how it was done. Goten, Gohan, and Trunks showed the other Saiyans as well. It was a great time. Even the doubters realized how fun training was, and how sparring with someone can push them further. The king watched from the throne room. No way this was happening. How could they enjoy this? They're conquerors, warriors. They didn't need to train. He had enough. He descended down to face his son one more time, telling him that this was ridiculous, but he would humor it. Vegeta was a little excited to hear this, but didn't show any emotion. The prince simply turned around and began to walk away, saying that training is usually better when challenged by someone of similar power. He then looked at Goku, who pushed his father forward, yelling out, "Alright, Bardock, it's your move." Everyone went quiet. A low-class Saiyan versus the king of them all? This would be a massacre. Even Bardock himself was a little nervous as the king laughed. He would show them all they are conquerors, not these peaceful warriors. Power was to control people, not better oneself. The king ripped his cape off and zoomed towards Bardock, but the king was surprised to see just how close Bardock kept his movement. The low-class Saiyan dodged and weaved out of the way, even landed a few hits. The king himself packed quite a punch. In fact, they seemed pretty matched. King Vegeta couldn't believe it, but he wanted to be stronger than this other Saiyan. He had to push himself. Slowly, he actually started to have some fun. He had always enjoyed battles, but a battle where him and his rival pushed each other further was unheard of. He hated to admit it, but his son was right. Later that night, the king brought forth a feast for the Z Fighters, finally admitting that his son might be right. Goten and Trunks were particularly excited about everything, looking up to the sky to watch fireworks. There were many surprises through the day, including a group of Saiyan pods crashing down, revealing that Bardock's old squad had also been brought back to life. It was a great celebration. Gine was sad, however, as Goku had to explain to her that Raditz had died during an altercation on Earth. Bardock and her grieved. Gine should have been clearer about what was happening with Kakarot, but Raditz was too hot-headed anyways. She was at least glad that he was probably in a better place. Still, she asked Goku if he could revive them, then perhaps he should give Raditz a second chance as well. Goku wasn't sure. He hated that Raditz guy, but his mom was right. The following day, it was time for Goku and the rest to return to Earth, but they promised to continue to visit and train with them. Goten and Trunks definitely wanted to spend more time there, and sure enough, over the following years, the Z Fighters visited every now and then. Goku and Vegeta even brought their wives and friends, even if they were mostly terrified. Piccolo in particular got along well with Bardock and his squad. Over the course of those 3 years, a good portion of the Saiyans were able to become Super Saiyans, including Bardock and the King. A Super Saiyan bargain sale, perhaps, but it was all due to the constant training and supervision from Goku and Vegeta. They were still far, far away from the rest of the Z Fighters, but they had to admit, the Super Saiyan was pretty nice. The King, Bardock, and Gine were even invited to Bulma's birthday party, where the king directly confronted Beerus. He was far too cocky about his new Super Saiyan state and angered the god. King Vegeta was slapped across the boat, but the king simply saw this as a new goal to achieve. He had turned into a Super Saiyan, he just had to keep training in order to defeat Beerus. Gine insisted on being the one to help Goku turn into a Super Saiyan god, and was part of the ritual. She was very excited to hear that she was going to be a great-grandmother with Pan. During the final moments of the battle against the God of Destruction, Goku not only thought of his old friends and family, but also the new family he had made on planet Vegeta, Bardock's squad, King Vegeta, his mother, father, and all the other Saiyans. The following year, after Beerus' attack, Goku and Vegeta gathered their Dragon Balls once more, this time to revive two old enemies, Nappa and Raditz. Their revival wasn't a happy one. While Vegeta tried to make amends, saying that they could return to planet Vegeta and apologize to Nappa, the bald Saiyan would not listen, swearing revenge. Raditz likewise wanted to kill his brother, but this all went away once he saw the man behind Kakarot, his father, Bardock. Gine and Bardock both hugged him tightly, and Raditz felt like a child once more. He realized that Kakarot had revived him, given him a second chance. His Saiyan ego still wished for revenge, but that could wait. Right now, he wanted to go home. Nappa and Raditz had no choice but to leave anyway, after Vegeta showed off a Super Saiyan, and it scared Nappa. Once they returned, they realized they were outcasts. They didn't have the year of training and pep talks that Goku gave the others. Instead, they were bitter. So they decided to instead travel the universe like they once had. They had to keep in mind that Goku wanted them away from causing trouble, and because of that, Bardock decided to go along with them. It would be a good time to be with his son again. Bardock, Gine, Nappa, and Raditz blasted off to explore for a few months. Bardock would teach the two what he could, though there was a prevailing darkness within Nappa that never went away. Thus, after so many decades of being on the brink of extinction, the Saiyans were reborn once more. Thanks to the efforts of the pure-hearted Saiyans, they could live peacefully under the rule of King Vegeta and train to better themselves every day. But not all was well. One fateful day, when King Vegeta was giving a speech about their relation with the other planets, such as Yardrat and Namek, a dark shadow was cast over the castle. The Saiyans stood frozen in fear. Some began to cry. Husbands hugged their wives. Children scurried to their moms. The king slowly turned around to see the giant shape of a Frieza mothership. His eyes shook and screamed out no. What could this be? King Cold was dead too, right? The ship landed. All the soldiers available turning into Super Saiyans. The door of the ship whipped open, with some soldiers in armor stepping out. King Vegeta recognized some. Berry Blue, Zorbei. The king took steps forward, yelling that they were not welcomed here. Tagoma, who stood up front, was punched back into the ship. Zorbei was surprised, but not worried. A slam was heard across the ship as a tail slapped the flying Tagoma away. King Vegeta's heart stopped. Footsteps were heard, until finally the sun shone on the horned head of Frieza. The Emperor laughed.
My, what perfect timing! My dear old Saiyan arrived right before I was. This is delicious. I was going to use Tagoma as a training dummy for a bit longer, but King, you will do much better.
King Vegeta dropped to his knees in fear, while sensing the power of Frieza.
Welcome back to the Frieza Force, monkeys!
Hey kids, don't go away. We'll be right back.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the video thus far. If you like this sort of content, want to see more, and support the channel, then consider becoming a Patreon. There, you can help support the channel through various tiers while getting some perks of your own. As a Patreon, you will be helping improve the videos, get them out faster, fund the awesome thumbnails, editing, and much more. Overall, this is the best way to ensure that I can keep providing you guys with awesome Dragon Ball content. Plus, you get some neat perks, like an extra discussion video every other week, early access to videos such as this one, and behind-the-scenes content. So be sure to go to patreon.com/SmugStick and consider supporting the channel. Thank you to all the current patrons for your support, and let's get back into the story.
And now back to our show.
It has been some time since Goku and Vegeta revived the treacherous Saiyans. Though difficult at first, they managed to lead them down a more righteous path. In the time between then and now, Goku and Vegeta have achieved the power of Super Saiyan God. They train with Whis diligently, unaware of the terror that lies near planet Vegeta. Bardock and Gine sit in the cockpit of the ship, closing in on planet Vegeta. They had gone on a 4-month expedition with Nappa and Raditz, trying to get them to reunite with their reborn society slowly. Raditz seemed more receptive through their travels, and stopping himself from being more violent. Nappa did find that he had a passion for watering plants, but the brute never opened up like Raditz did. In fact, he rejected any help and continued to promise that he'd kill Vegeta. Gine and Bardock noticed that he talked down to Raditz, who knew he couldn't stand up to him, who didn't take the low-class Saiyan seriously until he watched Bardock turn into a Super Saiyan. That quieted him down quickly. As they arrived at the orbit of planet Vegeta, Bardock's and Gine's eyes widened. It was their worst nightmare come true. A Frieza Force mothership. Gine and Bardock knew instantly that they couldn't stay there. Bardock in particular could sense the evil presence below. The Saiyan was sure that something bad was happening, telling Gine to land far away. If Frieza really was back, then he couldn't sense their ki. They would need to hide their power levels. Gine did as told, landing near the area where Bardock and she had sent Kakarot away. Bardock had already taught Nappa and Raditz to hide their power level, so he knew they were all safe. Slowly, they made their way through the forest and into the outskirts of the village, peeking through trees. They watched as Frieza soldiers pushed down the Saiyans, handcuffed them, placed collars on them, and made them form into lines. They could just barely see the horns of Frieza in the crowd. As people moved, they recognized King Vegeta on his knees, beaten and bloodied. Frieza's knuckles dripped with his blood, and they could sense that his power was getting stronger and stronger. Frieza was using the Saiyans as training dummies.
How does it feel, King? Achieving the legend only to serve your greatest enemy.
Bardock's skin went pale as soon as he saw the Emperor. He needed to do something, but he kept his calm, turning to Gine and telling her to return to the ship and head to Earth. She had to warn Goku. As she was about to rush away, Nappa grabbed her by the arm and smiled, saying that she better say hello to Kakarot for him. Gine looked confused, until she realized that she could feel his power rising. Bardock and Raditz realized it too, looking at Nappa with widened eyes. He was increasing his ki. All around, scouters began to beep as they picked up on the ki spike. Bardock yelled at Nappa that he had just killed them all. Bardock punched Nappa, making him let go of Gine. Bardock went along with her as hundreds of Frieza soldiers and Saiyans pursued them. Nappa's laugh was heard across the woods, with Bardock and Gine trying to disappear. The older Saiyan realized that Raditz wasn't behind them. He saw him standing back, his face looking down. Nappa grabbed onto him and forced him to walk back to the village, back to Frieza. Bardock was very disappointed and saddened, but he couldn't do anything else besides protecting Gine. They reached the ship, with Gine hurting inside. Bardock told her that he'd protect the ship. She tried to argue that she couldn't leave him, but Bardock promised her that it would be okay. They'll meet each other again, one way or another. It was a promise. Bardock transformed into a Super Saiyan, while Gine started up the ship. It blasted off, and Gine watched as Bardock blocked, dodged, and weaved the blast being hurled at the ship. Even King Vegeta was attacking. All the Saiyans had collars around their neck. Some that tried not to attack were shocked relentlessly. Gine's eyes filled with tears when she escaped. The last thing she saw was Bardock being pierced by a death beam and falling to the ground. Bardock did it. He helped Gine escape, but he was severely hurt.
What a ferocious fighter we have here. One of the highest power levels I've seen on this planet.
He heard footsteps coming his way. A hand lifted his chin up to look at the Emperor. Frieza.
That face. The face of the Super Saiyan on Namek! No, wait a minute. You're the Saiyan who stood up against me during planet Vegeta's destruction. Yes, yes. You will make a fine punching bag. Do try your best not to break as fast as the others. Oh!
A few months later, Gine's spaceship crash-landed onto Capsule Corp. Bulma quickly helped Gine, who explained everything. They needed to gather the Z-Fighters. They needed the prince and her son. It was only a matter of time until Frieza arrived. Bulma did what she could and tried to contact everyone. Tien, Yamcha, Gohan, Krillin, and Piccolo were all ready. They did what they could to train, even tried to contact the rest of the Saiyans, but to no avail. Goku and Vegeta were training with Whis, and Bulma asked for their help. However, not only were they too busy trying to push beyond the limits of Super Saiyan God and something of a different reality, but Whis monkeys recognized that Frieza's power had increased to such a degree by beating on the Saiyans that Goku and Vegeta would need to be pushed extra hard to stand a chance. Soon enough, the Frieza ship appeared overhead, but the Z fighters were ready. Even Gine herself stood front and center. The mothership landed with all the fighters getting into their battle stances. To their horror, not only did the army of Frieza soldiers sprint out of the ship, but also a battalion of Saiyans. Gohan noticed that they wore collars around their neck, and they seemed badly hurt. Gine's eyes filled with tears when she watched Bardock step out of the ship next to Shizame, Tagoma, and King Vegeta. The king seemed to be the most beaten out of all of them. Gine yelled for Bardock to come back to them, but he didn't respond. He didn't move an inch. His eyes were dark, soulless. Frieza laughed and claimed Earth for himself. He yelled at Bardock to move forward, saying that the father of that so-called Goku was going to be the one to bring ruin to the planet, as revenge for what happened on Namek. Without much else to say, Frieza ordered all of the army to attack. Gine didn't want to fight their friends, but she wouldn't have a choice. King Vegeta and Zorbei led their respective armies. Shizame and Tagoma stood by Bardock and Nappa. Raditz fought right behind Nappa, who yelled at him to attack. Raditz laughed, wanting his revenge, but Gine could tell that something was wrong. She could see it in his eyes that he didn't want this. Nappa went to face Tien, Yamcha, Krillin, and Roshi. He loved seeing the fear in Tien's eyes. He promised to break off his other arm this time to deepen his fear. He even planted a few Cybermen to attack the rest. Nappa ordered Raditz to fight Krillin. Though he seemed a little hesitant, Nappa pushed him into the fight. It was explosive, but the Z fighters actually had the upper hand this time around. Krillin managed to keep Raditz at bay, though he did just as Gine asked him, and didn't destroy Raditz outright. She trusted that her son wasn't doing this willingly, and Krillin trusted Gine. Yamcha and Roshi defeated the Cybermen, joining Tien to battle Nappa. The Saiyan didn't stand a chance. In fact, when the Cyberman tried to self-destruct, Yamcha actually spun to kick the Cyberman right into Nappa, defeating him. Tien wanted to kill Raditz, but it was Krillin and Yamcha who stepped in the way. They yelled to look at the defeated Nappa. He didn't have a collar. Raditz did, so that was it. Frieza had been torturing these Saiyans into submission. Nappa was one of the only ones to join willingly. In the meantime, Bardock commanded his squadron to attack Gohan, Piccolo, and Gine. They hated having to fight their friends, especially Gine and Gohan fighting Bardock. Gohan tried to maintain his cool. Bardock had gotten a lot stronger since the last time they met. Not only had he achieved Super Saiyan, but as one of Frieza's main punching bags, he received many Zenkai boosts. Gine begged for her friends to stop, but they seemed too afraid to. Gohan was fighting on the defensive as to not hurt Bardock, which actually caused him to be caught by surprise and pushed against the building. Bardock spun on his heel to throw a punch, nearly reaching Gine. She winced, but didn't shut her eyes. The punch never reached her. She sighed in relief, begging for Bardock to return to her. Bardock's fist shook until he finally pulled it back, a tear falling from his eyes, as he was then shocked by an extremely powerful shock of electricity. He fell to the ground in pain. It was clear that the Saiyans couldn't hesitate, or they would be shocked. Frieza laughed loudly as he watched Bardock fall yet again.
Soon, woman, you'll be mine, just like your husband.
Gohan exploded in anger, turning into a Super Saiyan 2. How dare he use these people who are good now, and treat them like animals. Frieza wasn't amused by Gohan's threats, turning to the king and telling him to start taking this seriously. Without a word, King Vegeta threw a ball up to the sky, exploding, expanding, and mixing it. Gohan couldn't believe what he saw. He turned to look at Gine, who was staring at the sky silently. All around them, Saiyans turned into a giant Ozaru. So much destruction all around the world, no doubt meant the end of Earth. Even Gine was a problem, as she couldn't control herself. There was a strange anomaly, as every Saiyan that was a Super Saiyan, when they looked at the full moon, transformed into a golden Ozaru. The giant monkeys rampage as entire cities and towns are turned into ash.
A long time ago, an army of Ozaru would have been a nightmare. And now they are my greatest asset!
The Z-Fighters do what they can to stop the beasts and save as many lives as possible, but there's far too many of them. The other fighters of Earth appear to help, such as Android 18, 17, Goten, and Trunks. They weren't expected to sit around and let Earth be destroyed, right? 18 saves her husband from getting stomped by Ozaru, and 17 blitzes through the waves of soldiers in a flash. The boys turn into Super Saiyans, grabbing tails of giant monkeys, spinning them like wrecking balls, and hurling them towards Frieza's army. The boys snicker as Goten wonders aloud if they could ever grow tails like that. However, they had no time to think, as swarms of soldiers surrounded the pair. The battle raged on, with the invasion turning into an all-out war for survival. What was this? Planet of the Apes? With both sides suffering great damage and losses, Frieza decides to step in and clean up the mess. He's disappointed that these overgrown chimps weren't able to finish the job, but what could he expect from these no-good Saiyans? In his first form, Frieza charges towards the Z-Fighters as they attempt to regroup. Goku and Vegeta are nowhere to be found, but even if they showed up, they couldn't be more challenging than these filthy Saiyans. Frieza laughed maniacally as he brutally beat down on the defenders of Earth. Krillin and Gohan looked for any opening that they could possibly exploit, but Frieza's defenses were airtight. He wasn't the same guy they fought back on Namek. His training served to turn Frieza into a terrifying fighter. The Z-Warriors proved to be a good match for the army, but he knew that in his current state, he stood above everyone. Well, except for 17. He was managing to hold his own pretty well, but no matter, he would be reduced to atoms as well. Frieza chuckled to himself, proclaiming that everyone would be killed slowly, but suddenly, there was a pink, flying blur, a power that exceeded the Z-Warriors, had just made its way into the battle. But what could he be? Frieza stopped himself mid-flight and looked to the aggressor. It was Majin Buu. He was yelling that Frieza would not hurt Hercule. Frieza was angered at the hit he had just received, and curious about Buu's power. After all, his father, King Colt, warned him to never face this monster. He shot a death beam right at Buu's chest. Buu didn't have time to react, and just like that, he fell towards the ocean. Frieza was disappointed. He knew he was a lot stronger than Buu, but he expected more of a fight. He turned his back and watched the Z-Fighters from above. They were next. But then, Buu came back, headbutting Frieza in the back, taking him by surprise. Frieza tried to kick him, but found Buu spinning over his head towards his chest and kicking him into the mountains. Piccolo yelled at the other Z-Fighters to use this opportunity to defeat the remaining Ozarus and soldiers. They needed to trust Buu. He could take the punishment more than they could. Frieza's body clashed into the mountains, creating a crater. But before the dust settled, thousands of death beams were fired towards Buu, every one of them landing. Frieza came out of the crater, shooting non-stop until Buu looked like Swiss cheese, with hundreds of holes covering his body. But they regenerated, surprising Frieza, who now knew how he was able to come back. Steam came out of the angered Buu, which blasted a pink Kamehameha at Frieza, which he kicked towards the air with all his might. The two warriors lunged at each other, engaging in a fierce combat. It was clear that Frieza was vastly superior in speed and strength, but Buu wasn't going down without a fight. He kept coming back, trying again. In one instance, Frieza punched Buu in the head so hard that it exploded, but then regenerated instantly, using the hole Frieza left in him as a way to imprison his hand. Then, Buu took advantage of this and started a barrage of quick punches on the captured Frieza. Buu's punches didn't do too much damage to Frieza, but they didn't tickle him either. Getting angrier and angrier, Frieza used his free hand to paralyze Buu with telekinesis. Both were standing still in mid-air, stopping each other's movements, until Frieza exploded with ki, making Buu disintegrate in his hand. Frieza sighed, but his relief was interrupted by a punch, getting thrown back. Another punch being sent towards him. There were now 4 Buus standing back to back, punching Frieza back and forth like a pinball machine. The Emperor screamed in frustration and slashed away 3 Buus with his death wave, and without wasting time, kicked the real Buu to gain some distance. Meteors from space were pulled into orbit by Frieza and were launched instantly against Buu, who used his candy beam to turn them into enormous jawbreakers, making them lose momentum and fall to the ground, causing shockwaves around the area. But Buu was clearly getting winded. Thankfully, most of the Z-Fighters were able to take down the Ozaru in the meantime. Goten and Trunks put their hands on Buu's back, telling him that he's done enough, that it's time for the rest of them to take down Frieza. Bardock was one of the Saiyans who did not transform. Much to the horror of Gohan, he realized that one of the punishments he received was getting his tail cut off. That was truly an inhumane thing to do as a method of torture. Ozaru all around were de-transforming. Some still rampaged, and beams from Frieza soldiers swooshed past their head. Bardock stood in the middle of it all, not saying a word. Gohan slowly approached Bardock while Frieza was distracted with a playful Gotenks and the rest of the Z-Fighters. Gohan tells Bardock that over the past few years, he has come to love him as a grandfather, and Gine as a grandmother. He explained that it had been a long time since they saw each other, and that now he has a daughter. Her name is Pan. Gohan took something out of his pocket, a wallet, with a picture of Pan within. Bardock's eyes widened. Her eyes. She saw his own son's eyes on her. Pan. He could tell she would have the heart of gold of Kakarot and the sweet smiles that Gine shares. This sparked something within Bardock. This is what he was fighting for this whole time. Frieza broke his bones, but not his spirit. A sparkle of electricity shot from his fist through his body and reached the collar. It began to electrocute Bardock. It was extremely painful, but he continued forward. He screamed out, with other Saiyans looking out in awe. He once again transformed into a Super Saiyan, but this time it was different. The sparkles showed it so. Inspired by Bardock, other Saiyans pushed their aura to the max. Their collars still shocked them, but they were pumping so much power forward that they began to malfunction. Bardock yells at Frieza, drawing his attention. A hurt Gotenks, Boo, 18, everyone else looked back to watch Bardock take slow steps to Frieza. The shock collar continued to hurt him. He was clearly in pain, but something incredible occurred. Bardock roared at the top of his lungs. The electricity of a Super Saiyan 2 transformation shook the collar back, making it turn off, open, and fall off his neck. There was a clear burn around his neck, but Bardock grabbed the collar, crushed it, and zoomed towards Frieza. Different collars all around exploded, and Bardock reached the Emperor with a punch to the face. Frieza was caught by surprise. The attack was incredible. He didn't think it through all those times he beat down on Bardock, but the boost he got were clearly enough to at least hurt Frieza some. The Emperor was anxious as other Saiyans followed suit, including Bardock's squad, and the king of all Saiyans, Gine, who had de-transformed thanks to Gotenks, smiled at her husband proudly. All the rebelling Super Saiyans as well as the powerful Z-Warriors rushed into Frieza. His forces were dwindling quickly. He needed to act. It was at a moment when Gotenks, 17, Gohan, and Bardock all had their blasts pointed at Frieza when he decided to show his last card. Frieza loses his cool and decides that he doesn't care anymore to wait for Goku, and he unveils his Golden State. He begins to easily defeat the Z-Fighters and the remaining Saiyans. The only one standing left is Bardock, whom Golden Frieza decided to leave for last. After all, he was the one that caused him most problems.
Bardock! Just as annoying as your son. I saw the life leave your eyes once. I'll gladly take it away again.
Golden Frieza creates a supernova and launches it to destroy Earth and the Saiyans. Bardock tries to hold it off to the best of his abilities, but it's no use. Just before he succumbs to the blast, it suddenly dissipates into a blue light. When he looks up, he sees his son and Prince Vegeta as Super Saiyan Blue. Goku thanks his father and everyone else for defending his home.
Oh, Vegeta! It's so good to see you! I can't wait to crush your face under my heel again. And who's that with you? Oh, it's you. I must thank you, Goku. You left me such a delightful welcome back present when I returned. While there are other races out there to torture, there's nothing else quite like the screeches of wounded monkeys. Ah, it's music to my ears.
Bardock's eyes filled with tears as he watched Goku fly directly at Frieza. Frieza did just the same. This is what he wanted this whole time. Both of them clashed their fists, creating an enormous shockwave, but something was very wrong. Goku was thrown off by the clash, with his arm hurting and stinging. The power difference was bigger than he expected. Frieza laughed, launching himself towards Goku again. The Saiyan was forced to apply a defensive position, blocking and dodging every attack, even landing a few hits at every opportunity. That's when Bardock realized that Frieza had the ability to kill them all at any point. The only reason he transformed was because he was cornered with all the blasts. If he had this transformation at his disposal this whole time, they truly never stood a chance. Vegeta, watching from the ground, decided to zoom in and help out. Kakarot was not going to get the win this time, at least not alone. Goku caught his breath, screaming and surrounding his body with ki. Frieza waited, smiling, but was surprised by Vegeta, who grabbed his legs and spinned his body until Goku crashed against him. Frieza fell onto the ocean with his ribs heavily injured because of the impact. He was angered, but slowly recomposed. Vegeta tells Goku that even though he hated to say this, they would need to work together to beat him. Goku agreed, but he had something else in mind. Vegeta wondered what that was, but Goku told him to just follow his lead. They surrounded their bodies with blue ki, crashing their fist against Frieza once more. Gohan wonders what's going on. He can't really sense their ki, but they have to be more powerful than Frieza, right? Why does it seem like they're slowing down? As Vegeta continues to fight Frieza, Goku stands, surrounded by a blue light, almost angelic. He tells them that it should be the Saiyans that defeat Frieza. They aren't sure how to possibly defeat them, but Gine snaps. Gine looks towards her husband, who had his arm around her, and it suddenly hits her. They're buying them time. With all these Saiyans around them, Kakarot wants Bardock to use the God ritual. Bardock's eyes widened, and he realized that he was surrounded by his squad. Gine, Fasha, Borgos, Shugesh, Tora. That was 5 Saiyans, and he was in the middle of it all. If the Saiyans truly have changed, then their pure hearts will allow them to ascend to new heights. Gohan explains the ritual, and many Saiyans gather together to perform it. As Goku and Vegeta continue to hold Frieza off, the Emperor's eyes widen in awe as he is blinded by a red flash of light appearing from the sky. When they look, they find several Super Saiyan gods, one coming up after another. First, Bardock, then another ritual comes forward. Gine, another one. Tora, Fasha, Shugesh, Borgos. It's a handful of Saiyans, all as gods. This is Frieza's worst nightmare. King Vegeta, who was still extremely hurt, much more than anyone else, holds his arm. He wishes he could join them. He wishes to be the one to defeat Frieza, but he knows in his heart that his heart is not pure. He has not changed the way Vegeta wishes him to be. In fact, he has some plans right after this. But damn it if he isn't going to be the one to defeat Frieza. Even though he's hurt, he transforms into a Super Saiyan alongside the rest, and stands side by side with the Super Saiyan gods. The Saiyans join Goku and Vegeta in fighting Frieza, and now it looks like the Golden Emperor is getting worn down. He cannot stand up against all these forces. It gets to the point where Bardock doesn't even notice the fact that Vegeta and Goku are no longer fighting alongside them. It's only the older Saiyans. It's obvious that Frieza has no chance to win. The Super Saiyan gods join together for one final attack, as Frieza throws a final death ball at the planet. In a desperate act, Goku, Vegeta, and the Super Saiyan gods, along with the rest of the Saiyans, humans, and Piccolo, combine their beams together, engulfing the death ball, a Kamehameha, Final Flash, Spirit Cannon, Special Beam Cannon. They all combined into one great beam, consuming the death ball and killing the Emperor once and for all. Sparkles fell down from the sky as the blast disappeared. The Super Saiyan gods turned back into base form, falling back down to the ground. Tired, beat, they were ready to return to planet Vegeta and reclaim it for themselves. Peace had finally returned. Raditz appeared from some rubble. He fell to the ground, tears falling as the collar finally fell down. He was thankful to everyone, especially his father, Goku and Gohan, and he said he was sorry for blindly following Nappa. Nappa, on the other hand, was not forgiven, but King Vegeta guaranteed that he would be taken care of. He knew a planet where he would be sent to. Thus, the Z-Fighters and the Saiyans once again crossed paths, but it was now time for them to return to their respective planets. Whis did stop Bardock, however, telling him that the strength that Goku has definitely comes from him, and that if he ever wanted to go to Beerus' planet, he was more than welcome to. Bardock thanked Whis, but looked at Gine. He really just wanted to spend time with her. Maybe in the future. At Planet Vegeta, they slowly reconstructed everything that had been destroyed by Frieza. Finally, they would return to normal. But King Vegeta had something to do. In secret, he took Nappa, along with some of his most trusted Saiyan warriors. They all got in a ship together. Time spent under Frieza's thumb made him realize that they needed to really protect themselves. There was something he could use, because the events made him realize that Saiyans were not built to be peaceful. They were not built to be under someone else. They were made to rule. He input the coordinates. Nappa, who was handcuffed, yelled at King Vegeta to let him go, that he was once his most trusted advisor. King Vegeta agreed, telling him that this is why he needs him for this mission. Sure, he did technically betray him, but he knows what Nappa is capable of. In the back of his mind, he thought to himself that Nappa would make a perfect bait if needed. Nappa asked once again where they were going, and King Vegeta said he had to pay a visit to an old friend. They were heading to planet Vampa. The two Saiyans opened the ship door, stepping towards planet Vampa. The desolate planet really surprised them both. They had felt an incredible power while in their ship. This must have been the ally that King Vegeta was talking about, Nappa thought to himself. Nappa was just happy that he'd be offered the position of second in command. That's what he was really looking forward to. They follow the power towards a cave, where they find an old Saiyan. The moment King Vegeta stepped into his line of sight, Paragus' eyes shot open with anger and hatred. Nappa recognized the Saiyan. It was Paragus, the old Saiyan that was cast away long ago. Was this the ally that King Vegeta was talking about? His answer soon came when Paragus yelled out for Broly to attack. The younger Saiyan appeared, rushing towards King Vegeta, but Nappa, thinking quickly, steps in the way, blocking the attack. But the punch hits Nappa harder than anything he's ever felt before, and he goes flying off. King Vegeta smiles. It was just as he hoped. This Saiyan was the key to his plan, but Paragus was in control, he could tell. King Vegeta yells at Paragus to calm down, that he's here to welcome Paragus back. But why shouldn't Paragus just kill King Vegeta, get his revenge for what he did to them? King Vegeta says that he needs him to get out of here. But not only that, he is ready to offer Paragus a comfortable living situation at the castle as his second in command. Nappa turns slowly towards King Vegeta, but that was the position he was going to get. Paragus wonders why he should trust King Vegeta at all, and without even looking, King Vegeta lifts his hand up and blasts Nappa in the chest, saying that he just killed his current second in command, so he could give him the job. Paragus cocked an eyebrow. This was going to be in his favor. He knew that Nappa and King Vegeta were close, so he must be really desperate to have him back. As long as he had Broly, he would always be one step ahead of King Vegeta. He would play along for now. King Vegeta continued, saying that he has no use for weak-minded Saiyans. It is time to return the Saiyan race to their former glory, but he needs his old friend back. King Vegeta extends his hand out, and Paragus takes it.
And you, young Broly, we will be watching your career with great interest.
At Planet Vegeta, King Vegeta introduces Paragus and Broly to the whole population after they've gotten cleaned up.
Kakarot and my son will not be around all the time. They have much bigger fish to fry than to protect Planet Vegeta. Therefore, I have brought a new savior!
The Saiyans cheer as they recognize they have a new protector. Bardock holds onto Gine, wondering if this is the right move. Something feels fishy. He notices that Broly is wearing something that looks like the shock collars that Frieza placed on them. Just as he thinks this, King Vegeta explains.
Broly is adorned with a prop collar, a reminder of what that monster Frieza did to us.
The Saiyans cheered. Bardock knew that the king was full of it. Bardock and Gine visit their son, Raditz, who has isolated himself from the rest of the Saiyans in the woods. He feels the glances of anger from the other Saiyans, who think that he joined Frieza on purpose. They tell him what's going on, and Raditz thinks it sounds like a good idea, having someone to protect Planet Vegeta. Bardock argues a little, and Raditz says that he needs to affirm his loyalty to the Saiyans. He can't afford to say anything against the king's wishes. Bardock is disappointed at Raditz for following another ruler blindly, but he knows that he will change his mind, and these words haunted Raditz for quite a few nights. Bardock and King Vegeta know that Goku and Vegeta have been training at Beerus' planet. Everyone who visited Beerus' planet enjoyed it, with Bardock mostly just chilling, but Gine actually tried to learn some, with her actually being taught the instant transmission, something that took a little bit of time, but she got it, and she thought it was very useful. Even Gohan got in the training, unbeknownst to most people. He kinda did it in secret. He wanted to surprise his father. They have a tournament coming up, one against another universe or something. Bardock refused to join the tournament. He thinks those kinds of things are silly. He knows that Kakarot would win anyways. In his stead, Fasha joined the tournament. She likes Kakarot, likes fighting and things like this, and has achieved Super Saiyan God thanks to the ritual, like Bardock and some of the other Saiyans had before. Bardock thanked her for that. He just wanted to spend time with Gine now. The rest of Bardock's squad remained on Planet Vegeta. Paragus did not trust King Vegeta at all, but he was happy to be back at the planet. He could control the king in the shadows. That fool was weak-minded, and Broly finally got to experience a little bit more than just Vampa. It was really a win-win all around. King Vegeta slowly gained his trust though, and promised Paragus his very own planet. With Frieza gone, they had a chance to fill the power vacuum before the Heaters and anybody else could. Broly was the key. Paragus wasn't sure on how he felt about using Broly as a weapon in this way, but the prospect of power was incredible. He would help the king for now, but betray him later on and become the new king. Planet Paragus did have a nice ring to it. King Vegeta made sure to entrust only a handful of Saiyans with the information, and they begin to go and take over planets. Slowly, planets begin to fall under the rule of King Vegeta, making sure that he only approaches planets far away from Earth, just in case. Raditz is approached by the king about a secret mission, but he refuses. He feels he isn't strong enough just yet. King Vegeta is disappointed but understands, dismissing him. In reality, Bardock's words rang on the back of Raditz's mind. He became suspicious of the king and goes on to spy on him. However, Paragus notices him and Broly catches him, punching him into a wall. Raditz is captured. It doesn't take long for Bardock to realize that his son is missing, and he bursts into the king's throne room, asking him where the hell his son is.
Your son stuck his nose where it didn't belong.
You monster! You are taking advantage of the fact that Vegeta and Kakarot aren't around to stop you. But what will you do when they return?
You think I haven't thought of that? Don't you see, Bardock? This is your protection. The protection of Planet Vegeta.
Broly appears behind the king, clearly badly burned around his neck. He had been getting shocked often.
We are meant to rule, Bardock. You and I. With Broly's help, no one will get in our way. Not even Kakarot. Even Paragus understands. But you are the great warrior among us. Join me.
Bardock looked at Broly, then back at the king. He was no better than Frieza. That collar wasn't just for show. He said he was sorry, and that he promised Broly to get him out of there. Somehow. Broly simply stared blankly, saying, just doing what my father tells me to. King Vegeta realizes that Bardock is going to rebel and orders Broly to attack. The father of Goku burst into Super Saiyan God, but that's nothing compared to Broly. This Saiyan is instantly pushed out of the castle. He has no option but to retreat. King Vegeta says to let him go, that he will return and he will be killed then. Thus, Bardock goes into hiding with Gine. She brings up the idea of bringing some of the Z-Fighters to help, but Bardock wants to show her, and the Z-Fighters, that the Saiyans can protect themselves. King Vegeta was right about one thing: they can't keep relying on Goku and the others. Bardock's squad wonders where the hell they are. Finally, the day of the Universe 6 tournament arrived, and Bardock knew that none of the Z-Fighters would be there to help them out. They were alone. The king shows off Raditz in chains, explaining that he is a traitor, as it was shown during the Frieza attack. He will be made an example. Gasps and cheer go off all at once. In the outskirts of the city, Bardock feels his son's key. Him and Gine rush to see what is going on, hiding their faces with hoods. Before King Vegeta can make an example out of Raditz, Bardock springs into action, turning into Super Saiyan God once more and punching Broly into the building. He quickly turns to explain that King Vegeta has been taking over planets without them knowing, abusing Broly's power. Arguments began as Broly returned. Quickly, Bardock blasted Raditz out of the chains and rushed out of there, but Broly pursued.
Like father, like son. Another traitor!
The king's guards went after Bardock, but Tora, Shugesh, and Borgos got in the way. They believed in their friend. Some of the other Saiyans that were inspired by Bardock during the attack on Earth joined as well. They defended him with all his might, but Broly seemed unbeatable. Paragus tells the king that Bardock and his little band of rebels just declared war on the planet. The battle goes on for a while, with some Saiyans dying. Tora and the rest of Bardock's squad retreat. Bardock, Raditz, and Gine skip to the ships, hiding out. He tells them to go to Earth, to have Gine use the instant transmission. He knows that no one is there to help them out, but at least they will be safe until Goku and the others return. Gine doesn't want to leave him, but he's right. Thus, Raditz and Gine teleport to Earth. Broly tries to go after Gine and Raditz, but Bardock jumps in the way. He's hit and lands in the middle of the forest, nowhere to be found. Gine manages to concentrate just for long enough, and in the blink of an eye, her and Raditz are gone. Bardock begins to wake up. He finds himself in Tora's care, who then begins to explain their current situation, how King Vegeta has now declared war against them, and that they are labeled as rebels. Bardock takes this in, and as he becomes aware, he frantically looks around for Gine and Raditz. The last thing he remembers was Broly trying to stop them before leaving. Borgos rests his hand on his shoulder and reassures him that they managed to escape. Standing up and adjusting his headband, he looks at his faithful squad and announces that they need a plan of action if they're going to survive this war. They are greatly outnumbered. The first order of business would be to find any Saiyan who sides with them before the king threatens them into joining their cause. Wait, maybe we could also He smiles a little before telling the others that they should also steal the remote control for Broly's collar. He saw it when he was at the king's castle. That way King Vegeta will lose a huge advantage, and it will level the playing field by a lot. They'd be in control of Broly instead. Looking towards the sky, he sighed. Let's not forget that we have allies elsewhere too. I'm positive that they will come to aid us in the time of need, but for now we need to prepare and wait for Gine and Raditz. His squad nodded and agreed in unison, then began making their preparations. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Gine frantically looks around for anyone. She wasn't sure who she had locked onto, but she seemed to be in a school. But she heard her name get called out. She turned around to see her savior. She knew things would be okay once she saw him. She smiled brightly, telling him that they need his help immediately. The real battle was about to begin. While Gine and Raditz spend time on Earth looking for help, Bardock and his squad make plans to steal the remote control that controls Broly from King Vegeta while recruiting Saiyans to their cause. Each member went out and started to recruit Saiyans who knew they had been inspired by Bardock during the fight against Frieza. Bardock and Tora, on the other hand, were tasked with stealing the remote. With the help of some of their allies on the inside, they successfully managed to sneak in all the way into Vegeta's chamber, which would only be unguarded for a few minutes. The remote wasn't anywhere to be found, so they decided to check out the next best place, the throne room. They entered it cautiously and looked around. Broly and King Vegeta were there already. A smug laugh cut through the tense silence, and King Vegeta stood up from his throne, holding the remote already.
Looking for this? Seems like your allies aren't as loyal as you think when they are threatened with their life.
Bardock and Tora glared. Looks like using Broly against them wasn't an option. Vegeta begins to laugh, and then orders Broly to attack the two invaders. Instantly, Broly rushed towards the two of them. In response, they turned Super Saiyan God and prepared themselves. Broly targeted Tora first, his instincts telling him that he was the weaker of the two, punching his torso and sending him crashing through 2 or 3 walls. He snarled and turned his attention towards Bardock, who was already on his way towards him. He sent a right hook to his cheek, and although it didn't push him very far, it did do some damage. The three of them battled for a minute. It was clear that even though Broly had less numbers, he had the advantage. It seemed like as the battle went on, Broly became more and more berserk and unpredictable, losing himself to his Saiyan and primal instincts. The duo had no choice but to retreat for now. They sent a knowing glance to each other as they rushed towards King Vegeta, who looked very surprised very quickly. Inches before reaching him, they shot off in opposite directions, blasting a hole in the castle walls and rushing out, hopefully to safety. Broly, however, in his battle rage state, kept on forward, with his attention now on the king. King Vegeta instantly started spamming the controller to make Broly stop, but nothing happened. Tora and Bardock witnessed this, not sure if this was a malfunction or if there was some distrust between Paragus and the king. Paragus finally made his way into the throne room, grinning a little. Did you really think I'd trust you with the real remote? You must be as stupid as you are, Pompous. Now then, do it, Broly! He screamed as Broly sent the king flying, breaking a few of his bones in the process and leaving the king extremely wounded. He laid on the ground, gasping for air in clear distress.
You traitor! I'm going to exile you from my kingdom again. You and your deranged brat will be sent back to that desolate landscape of a planet for the rest of your lives.
Paragus walked towards the injured king. Your kingdom? No. The galaxy belongs to me now. Vegeta looked in shock, but he was unable to do anything. Paragus laughed and forced the king to kneel before him as Broly exploded in power, with some distance behind him, unable to control his power and bringing down a good portion of the castle in the process. Tora and Bardock looked on from their hiding place outside of the castle grounds, then at each other. They had no idea how they were going to deal with this power now. It was destructive, massive, uncontrollable. Their best hope now was to put their faith on Gine and hope that she finds someone who can help. They zoomed upwards, looking in through a hole on the castle wall. Explosions were going on everywhere, not just the castle, but his power was also destroying other parts of the planet. King Vegeta fell to his knees next to Paragus, watching his castle crumble. Bardock and Tora flew down to be next to them. They didn't have anything to say. Clearly, the only side that had won was Paragus, or so Bardock thought, as the sound of instant transmission echoed through the castle, their eyes jolting towards the new power signature. It was Gohan. He was taking off his glasses and university suit. He had been the only Z fighter to not show up to the Universe 6 tournament. Gine was the one to teleport them there, and Raditz was with her. Broly stares him down, and Gohan realizes that he probably can't take him on either, at least not in his regular state, but he at least has a plan. It will still be a long time before the rest of the heroes return, so he knows he's the only option. Gohan is extremely powerful, being able to keep up with Broly a little bit while he is in his berserk state. Following the defeat of Frieza, he began taking his training more seriously, even more so than most realized. He smiled at Bardock, telling him that he's got this. To everyone's surprise, while in the middle of the battle against Broly, Gohan started to breathe deeply. How was he keeping up in his base form like this? That's when it hit Raditz. He couldn't sense Gohan's ki. Bardock's eyes widened in realization. Gohan's aura was engulfed in blue flames, transforming into a Super Saiyan Blue. This incredible power showed the fruit of a long time training. Gohan realized that he couldn't remain in his usual state when there was a whole planet of Super Saiyan gods. He needed to train. He was instructed by Whis, but most of the training he discovered on himself, and a little help from Dende and the Room of Spirit and Time. This power boost made Gohan a completely different powerhouse. He was able to dodge various moves that Broly attempted to throw at him, but Broly was obviously getting more and more angry. Paragus couldn't believe that Gohan could actually stand a chance against Broly, his most powerful weapon. But as Broly was getting more and more violent, Paragus realized that he needed to stop him. But could he use the remote to simply make him angrier and have him win? This was a risk he was willing to take. Broly exploded in power. His frustration at the Super Saiyan Blue pushed him forward. This became too much for even Gohan to handle. Punch after punch, he is dragged deeper and deeper underground until reaching the Royal Incubation Chamber. Gohan knows he has to be careful. Most of the incubators were empty, but he still needed to do his best to draw out Broly. The Saiyan crashed through the empty incubators, glass shattering and water spreading through the room. The other Saiyans looked at the crater from above, when suddenly Gohan rushed up, followed close behind by Broly. Gohan spun on his heel, cupping his hands. Broly was about to reach him when Gohan fired a blast, making the Berserk Saiyan crash back down into the crater. Gohan panted. No way that was over. But he heard Broly scream from within the crater. Everyone turned around to look at Paragus, who kept on pressing the button over and over again. He was shocking Broly in intervals. Tora appeared before Paragus and punched him square in the jaw, making him drop the controller, which Bardock stepped on. But it was too late. Paragus' plan had worked. Gohan's eyes widened as the nightmare continued. Not only was Broly alive, but he was angrier than ever, his ki exploding and his aura turning gold. Gohan couldn't believe it, but the attack and the abuse from his father had triggered the Super Saiyan transformation. Gohan could no longer stand a chance. Broly dragged Gohan's face across the castle wall and Paragus cheered, with Bardock holding his family as Gine teared up. The fight was then taken away from the castle and into the wilderness, where Gohan was punched through a volcano. The volcano exploded, with lava spewing from it. Gohan knew he had to use this to his advantage. Meanwhile, Bardock yelled at Gine and Raditz to help out. They couldn't let the lava reach the city. The three created ki shields around themselves to stop the lava, but it wasn't enough. A few other Saiyans helped, including the Bardock squad and the few warriors they recruited. Bardock pleaded with King Vegeta and Paragus to help, but only the king stood up. He wasn't going to allow his people to lose their homes. This was enough to keep the lava away while Gohan and Broly battled. The battle continued, with Gohan remaining on the defensive. He kicks Broly in the face to get the chance to escape. Looking down at the lava below, Gohan flew close to it, throwing a ki ball to clear his path, but Broly was following close behind. The lava began to close in on them, and Gohan rushed out of there just in time for the lava to consume Broly and drag him down into the inferno. Gohan once again sighed in relief, turning to smile at the other Saiyans protecting the city. Paragus damned the world, punching the ground. He had lost. But Gohan was nearly out of power, falling from the sky into his base form, the lava coming in close, and with Gohan unconscious, he would surely be killed. But as he passed out, he watched a figure grab him and save him. Mr. Piccolo? Once Gohan opened his eyes again, he realized it wasn't Piccolo. In fact, it was Raditz. The Saiyan who once kidnapped him long ago had just saved his life. Gohan didn't thank him, he simply nodded. His father would be happy. But they weren't out of the woods just yet, because the planet began to shake. The Saiyans couldn't hold the lava back any longer, and Bardock instructed them to fire the blast. They all did as told, and the lava was pushed back into the volcano, solidifying it. But the planet didn't stop shaking, because Broly rose from the mouth of the volcano, even stronger than before. His muscles were bulging. All of the Saiyans stood in front of Gohan, determined to defend him, and even died to protect him. But with the last of his strength, Gohan stood back up and told them to stand down. He would protect them. Broly laughed, firing an ultimate Omega Blaster. Gohan cupped his hands, firing a Kamehameha right back. He was losing badly, but Bardock, Gine, and Raditz all stood behind to help. Even so, it wasn't enough. Gohan was getting tired. His arm went limp, but someone held it up for him. He opened his eyes, turning his head to see his father in a Super Saiyan Blue state. Vegeta, Goten, Trunks, even Buu and the other Z fighters were there too. He thanked them all for their help. Bardock and the squad turned into Super Saiyan God, Gohan himself into blue, and with one last scream, they pushed the blast back, finally consuming Broly, a blinding light, finishing the menace. Beerus and Whis smiled proudly from above. Not only had they won the Universe 6 tournament, not only had Gohan proven himself, but they found this new interesting guy. They all celebrated, with Bardock and King Vegeta both arresting Paragus, though Bardock made sure to let the king know that he wasn't out of the woods yet. Gohan stood alone, looking at what Broly once was. He wasn't convinced that it was over, because it wasn't. Broly just wouldn't give up. The Saiyan flew upwards from the crater, looking at Gohan directly in the eyes. Goku put a hand on his son's shoulder, telling him that he didn't have to do this anymore, but Gohan shook his head, saying,
I could do this all day.
Broly took slow steps towards Gohan, and Gohan did the same. They stared each other down, but the younger Saiyan didn't attack. Not that he had any strength to. Instead, he put a hand on Broly's shoulder. Gohan said,
I know what you feel. This anger, this power. I know that it's your father that put you to this, didn't he?
Gohan looked at the caller.
You don't have to fight anymore. Not for him, not for anyone. Just for yourself. But I know what that kind of power does to you. I was once that kid who exploded in power. I too was used to fight for a cause by my dad. The difference is that my father helped me fight for good, to better myself. Broly, you don't have to keep fighting.
Broly still seemed angry, but he began to relax. Gohan moved his hand over to Broly's neck, which scared him, but Gohan promised that he wouldn't hurt him. In fact, Gohan removed the shock collar from Broly. He then smiled, throwing it to the side. Broly's eyes widened, and he slowly de-transformed back into his base form. He fell to his knees, but Gohan extended his hand out with a smile. All the Saiyans cheered. Gohan had done it. Bardock and Gine hugged him tightly. There were many changes that needed to be made for the sake of Planet Vegeta. Now that King Vegeta had been revealed to be a quote-unquote traitor in the eyes of some, it was widely believed that he wasn't fit to be king anymore. After the terrible defeat that was Broly and the near destruction of the city, King Vegeta himself let go of the position. Prince Vegeta promised everyone that he'll take care of his father. If anything, King Vegeta was a little glad he'd be living on Earth, in a small house by Capsule Corp. He'd get to spend his time with his family. Perhaps this is what he needed to mellow down. However, they still needed a king. Some of the Saiyans wanted Bardock to be the king, but he completely refused, saying that that sort of thing wasn't for him. But the thought remained in his head. Maybe in the future? No, Vegeta thought of someone else. No, perhaps it was time for the prince himself to take up the throne. However, Vegeta lived on Earth, and he wasn't willing to live on planet Vegeta for the sake of this. Thus, it was decided he would not be the only king. He would rule and make decisions from Earth, but the figurehead on planet Vegeta would be none other than his brother, Tarble. Thus, both Prince Vegeta and Prince Tarble became the new kings of planet Vegeta. Broly was kept on planet Vegeta. Everyone agreed that it wasn't really his fault, and that he was mostly being used by his father. Bardock and his squad promised to take good care of him, teach him to control his power, and much more. With Goku and Vegeta excited to fight him, Paragus remained in his jail cell, wishing for revenge. But as he laid there, rotting, he felt a strange power, a strong presence, something that hadn't been felt in hundreds of years. But darkness looms over the galaxy. This challenge may be over with, but the revived Saiyans had a whole, unexpected war ahead of them. Following the battles against Broly and Paragus, King Vegeta has moved to Earth with his eldest son at Capsule Corp. It's strange. Vegeta assumed that his father would mellow out while living on Earth, but in fact, the opposite of it has happened. King Vegeta has fallen into a deep state of depression and darkness. He's bitter about having to give up his position as king, and now he has to be a commoner. Oftentimes, he butted heads with everyone in the family, not only Vegeta, but Bulma and little kid Trunks as well. Meanwhile, on planet Vegeta, Tarbal is the new king, along with his brother, though Vegeta mostly just works remotely and assists Tarbal whenever he needs help. He is a gracious king, and much more understanding than any of the other ones. However, not all is well in Planet Vegeta. There are two factions forming from the Saiyans. One, the Elite, and the Warriors. The ones who did not get the Super Saiyan God form, nor perform the God ritual due to their impure hearts. They are against the new kings, as both Tarbal and Vegeta disallow taking over planets. These Saiyan warriors have remained loyal to King Vegeta and want to continue to dominate the weak and maintain the current caste system on Planet Vegeta, that of the Elite, Mid, and Low-class Saiyans. Though they go by many names, they are mostly known as Vegeta's Sword, named after the old king. Another faction begins to form as well though, one made up of low-class Saiyans, with few warriors and non-combatants, who, despite not being as strong as the other ones, gained the God form since they had pure hearts, and took Goku's teachings to heart when it came to self-improvement and finding a new path. They see Vegeta and Tarbal as the true rulers, who are improving the quality of life of all Saiyans, without resorting to violence. There have been whispers about this faction, being known as Kakarot's Shield, but overall, everyone seems to be changing on Planet Vegeta, and it's noticeable for Tarbal. Much like King Vegeta on Earth, they've started to become agitated, angry, not just the loyalist, but all Saiyans on Planet Vegeta become more aggressive than usual. Because of the political turmoil, it's clear that the tensions are rising. Bardock and his squad continue to train, trying to achieve Super Saiyan Blue and teach Broly how to control his power. Raditz joins in as well, learning to use Super Saiyan and master the form, though he is jealous of Broly at first, not only because of his immense strength, but also because Bardock trains him, something he never really did for Raditz. He constantly challenges Broly, though the stronger Saiyan only ever ends up confused. Raditz would often act pompous and brag about his time as a soldier in Frieza's army, which intrigued Broly. Besides Vampa, he had never been to any other planets. Over time, they start to become something of rivals and even friends. Their time with the Bardock squad continues like this for a while. However, their training is interrupted one day by King Tarbal requesting their help. Tarbal realizes that there is some elite Saiyans that are still displeased with their new trajectory of the Saiyan race. Not only that, but this faction is also growing by the numbers, and things that look like riots are beginning to form. There have even been reports of spies using strange new powers. He thinks there's a problem. Thus, Tarbal asks Bardock to go to villages and cities, speaking to loyalists and convince them to stand down. He was a hero for the Saiyan race after all. Surely they'd be more willing to listen to him than anyone else. Bardock thinks this is such a drag, but he's willing to try. Bardock goes to investigate in a pub near the king's castle. There, they find a group of elite Saiyans. He tries to reason with them, tell them that the king is doing the right thing, but they're not listening to him, and in fact, retaliate and begin to fight him. While Bardock's still stronger, he realizes that these elite Saiyans are a lot stronger than they should be, a lot stronger than they used to be. A masked Saiyan appears, stopping the battle and apologizing for his comrades' attitude towards the situation. He tells Bardock that they will leave now. Though Bardock asks for his identity, they disappear before he can say anything. They return to Tarbal to tell him what happened, leaving the king worried. They will soon announce that the Saiyan caste system will be no longer in place. This means the lines between elites, middle class, and low class Saiyans will be meaningless. It's an old antiquated system anyways, but the rising tensions between the classes continue, and now there's battles going on in the streets. Tarbal makes sure to contact his brother, asking him, Goku, and Gohan to come over for when he's going to announce the new regulations on the caste system, and they all agree to come, but when the day arrives, none of them show up. They're all worried, but they don't have any time to go look for them. Gine tells everyone that it'll be okay, that they can handle whatever happens. And thus, Tarbal begins to make the announcement, but while he's speaking, other voices begin to ring off, some familiar ones. Some elites begin to yell at Tarbal, asking him why he hasn't done anything about Paragus. Just a month ago, he had escaped, and all the Saiyan elites began to blame him. In fact, that was the turning point for the middle-class Saiyans, who began to support the elites as well. One particular Saiyan steps forward, the one that was wearing a mask. His evil aura expands, something that Bardock recognizes. All the Saiyans he fought at the pub had the same exact aura, something purely evil. The Saiyan declares Tarbal a fraud of a king, and that it's their duty to uphold the Saiyan philosophy of the strong dominating the weak. The masked Saiyan declares that he and his brethren will now commence a rebellion to kill King Tarbal, so they can lead their people to their true destiny. Red Miasma begins to surround the Saiyan crowd. As his aura opens, everyone clutching their heads in pain feeling overwhelming urges to kill. Some Saiyans like Bardock and his squad are able to retain their sanity and fight back against the urges, but others begin to overload in power, unwillingly transforming into Super Saiyans. Raditz is nearly able to fight back against the corruption, but his feelings of self-doubt are amplified, and he eventually breaks, rampaging as a Super Saiyan. The ones that retain their sanity have no option but to transform as well into Super Saiyan gods to control the crowd. Bardock goes off to protect King Tarble, while Gine follows him. Despite his protest, she refuses to leave his side ever again. Bardock fights the king in the middle of a battle against the masked Saiyan in the castle's throne room. Although Tarble went through the ritual and did access Super Saiyan God, he's no match for the masked Saiyan. Gine hides behind a pillar, while Bardock arrives just in time to kick the masked Saiyan in the face, saving Tarble. The mask cracks open, revealing the man behind it, King Vegeta. Bardock's Super Saiyan blue aura reflected on the broken mask. He thought the masked man would be Paragus. He never expected it to be the king. Tarble questions his father why, but the thick, red miasma continues to ooze out of the castle floors, shattering the windows. Gine, Bardock, and Tora look in terror as King Vegeta announces himself as the true ruler of the planet. Behind Bardock, he hears another voice. This time, it is Paragus, telling him that he told him he'd be back. Bardock assumes that they are the two behind all this chaos, but King Vegeta shakes his head, telling him that they serve a greater cause this time. The two evildoers turn into Super Saiyans, their aura shining in black and red. Outside, the rest of the rampaging Super Saiyans roar as their eyes shine in red, with the same reddish-black aura enveloping them. It's an all-out war, as King Vegeta declares the greatest Saiyan civil war. All the Super Saiyan gods continue to battle, but it's revealed that Broly himself is beginning to struggle with the mist, his aura also being consumed. Meanwhile, Bardock and his squad continue to be beaten by Paragus and King Vegeta, as well as his forces. Bardock yells at Gine to save Tarble, who's severely hurt, and take him to Earth. King Vegeta tries to blast the girl, but Bardock rushes in towards him, with Gine finally teleporting over to Earth. The only person she finds there is Piccolo. She asks where the hell everyone is, that they need their help. Piccolo shakes his head, telling her that Goku and the others are currently in the future, dealing with something about Goku Black or whatever, but they'll be back soon. Gine tells Piccolo that they need to heal Tarble, and he agrees, but he can't do it. He tells her to look for a power similar to his own. Finally, logging into Dende and teleporting over to him. On planet Vegeta, Bardock rushes into the king, crashing against the throne. The Bardock squad and the rest of the Super Saiyan gods are losing the battle. They are severely outnumbered. Bardock continues to fight violently, but he's eventually knocked through the castle wall and into the battle scene outside. King Vegeta tells Paragus to finish off the low-class scum, that he needs to stay inside and make sure that preparations are ready for their master. Paragus nods as he flies outside the castle. Bardock lands close to Raditz, who grabs him by the throat. Paragus laughs as he arrives, asking him if he really thought all the Saiyans could change, to look at his own son, that no one like him could ever change. But Raditz is blasted away. Paragus' head snaps back to look at the newly arrived Tarble, but he wasn't alone. Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, even future Trunks, Goten and Trunks, they had all arrived to save the day. Gine rushed over to Bardock, telling him that sorry she was late, but that she told all the Sea Fighters what was going on as soon as they returned from the future. Bardock was confused by the mention of the future, but didn't question it. They needed their help as much as they could. Vegeta is furious and rushes off to confront his father at the king's castle. Vegeta finds his father looking over the balcony in the castle, watching the war increase in bloodshed. Vegeta asks his father why. Did Earth mean nothing to him? King Vegeta chuckles, saying that yes, of course it meant something to him. It meant that he was changing. It meant that he was becoming weak and soft. He yearned to go back to the savage warrior ways. That's why when Paragus contacted him, when he started feeling that strange power, he offered to lead the way once more. He knew it was his path. The king continues to tell his son that he has no idea how humiliating it was, the despair of not being able to follow his warrior ways. But Vegeta says that he knows that feeling too well. He sold his soul many years ago, and he still feels Babidi in his head. In doing so, he became a shell of a man, and nearly got everyone killed. Without another word, Vegeta powers up into Super Saiyan Blue, telling his father to stand down or else. But King Vegeta chuckles, saying that no real Saiyan would ask. They would simply make him do it. The father and the son charged towards each other, the battle raging on. But on the outside, something terrible was happening. Future Trunks continued to battle down on the floor, trying to help Broly, but the red mist continued to surround him. He was trying to fight it off, but to no avail. His hatred, his pain began to surge. All he could see is Zamasu, future Gohan, the androids, Bulma, everyone he had lost. The entire universe. He had failed. Suddenly, he blacked out. nothing but a red aura surrounding him. Goten and Trunks asked him what was going on, but he simply slapped them away. Future Trunks was also corrupted. Bardock tells the kids to get away from the mist, to fly up. They don't know how to stop it, and now they have the raging Future Trunks to take care of. Goku, Gohan, and Bardock continue to fight against the wave of Berserker Saiyans, including Broly and Trunks. The battle between Vegeta and the King is taken outside, where Future Trunks stands by King Vegeta's side. Vegeta tries to tell his son to calm down, that this isn't him, but King Vegeta says that it's exactly who he is, that Trunks is more of a Saiyan than his father ever was. This infuriates Vegeta, who continues to try to fight back, but his son's power is too much. The Berserker Trunks slams Vegeta down to the ground, where the King stands above him. King Vegeta grabs his son by the hair, and with another hand he begins to create a Ki Ball. But this was no regular Ki Ball. He began to explain that the Saiyans are the most powerful race in the entire universe, but that it is time to ignore all the gods and embrace their animalistic side. The Ki Ball expanded. King Vegeta was created an artificial moon. The King laughed, saying that blood waves would give a rise to a new breed of Saiyans. He threw the artificial moon up to the sky. Unlike the regular ones, this one was also consumed by the evil aura, turning red in the process. Right after King Vegeta threw the artificial moon, he threw his son right after it. Vegeta crashed onto it. The sound of glass shattering sounded off, followed by the roar of an Ozaru. Everyone looked back, even the Berserk Saiyans. They couldn't believe it. But even without a tail, the amount of blood waves caused a transformation in Vegeta. No regular Ozaru, a golden Ozaru. Vegeta crashed back down to the ground, shaking the planet. His roar caused other Saiyans to get pumped up, looking up to the moon, them too becoming Golden Ozaru. It was a whole army of great apes. Bardock and his squad know that there's no chance for them to win, even as some of them transform into Ozaru as well. The Golden Ozaru continue to fight, with only Bardock, Goku, and Gohan being really able to help out. Broly remained in front of everyone, in its Berserker Super Saiyan state. He was even more dangerous than all of the Ozaru. It was a losing battle for the Z Fighters. Even Goku's Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken was useless in the face of this many Super Saiyan Ozaru. Goku, Gohan, Trunks, and Goten, as well as Bardock and his squad, fire a huge blast that consumed a good portion of the Ozaru, many of them being defeated. But just as they thought they had gained the upper hand, they felt a strange presence. They looked over to the castle. It was shaking, and out of it, a huge aura erupted. The castle broke apart. Nothing but rubble left. All of the battle stopped as they turned to see who had arrived. His steps created earthquakes, and even the Golden Ozaru and all the regular Berserk Saiyans kneeled behind him. King Vegeta declared the new arrival as Cumber, a Saiyan warrior of old, one of the truly evil Saiyans that had been locked away in Planet Vegeta after the Super Saiyan God battled and nearly defeated all of the evil Saiyans. After the battles against Broly, he had been freed from his slumber, and his aura began to corrupt all of the Saiyans. That's why King Vegeta was becoming more violent, why the elite ceased to return to their primal ways. But none of that mattered. All Goku cared about was helping his friends. But Cumber wasn't going to let the battle continue just yet, because the true power of the Saiyan hadn't been unlocked quite yet. Cumber's eyes glowed red as he growled, "Arise!" He lifted his hand up, destroying the artificial moon, and as he did, all of the Ozaru started to become smaller again. But as they did so, they began to take control of the Ozaru transformation. The red mist around them consumed them. They were undergoing a brand new transformation. The mist slowly dissipated, and Vegeta was the first one to step up. His body had undergone an incredible transformation. He was now covered in fur. He had a tail like long ago, and his hair had grown. This was no Super Saiyan Blue, no Super Saiyan God. It didn't even look like regular Super Saiyan. Goku didn't know what to call it. He simply whispered, "Is this Super Saiyan 4? All of the Saiyans that had turned into Ozaru began to transform as well, the entire army becoming Super Saiyan 4s. Thus, the battlefield was divided. One side, the Super Saiyan Gods, and the other, the Super Saiyan 4s. The war resumes as the wrathful Super Saiyan 4s beat down on the Super Saiyan Gods. These new Saiyans didn't fight like warriors, they fought like feral animals, ready to tear their prey apart. It takes Bardock and Gohan everything they got to defend themselves. Goku is at the front lines, fighting against Vegeta. He has to admit, this is the most fun he's had in a long time, but he was worried. He didn't like seeing Trunks and Vegeta like this. He tried to reason with Vegeta, telling him about Bulma, Trunks, everyone else, that he had gone through this before, that he had sold his soul long ago, but he couldn't reach him. Bardock is the one to stand tall against Cumber, even against the insistence of Kakarot and the others. But his Super Saiyan God, Bardock says, "No, this is our fight. A fight as old as time itself. Elites versus low class. Let's end this." but even his Super Saiyan God power did little to stop the raging titan. Cumber grabbed him by the face, his evil aura corrupting Bardock's. It seemed like he was dying. Goku tried to rush in, but all the Elite Saiyans got in the way. Bardock's hand dropped to the side, along with his tail. Cumber then tossed him aside like a piece of trash. Everyone went cold, thinking Bardock was dead. However, he stood back up, slowly changing, transforming into a Super Saiyan 4. In the meantime, Super Saiyan 4 Future Trunks grabs onto Goten and Trunks, slamming them against each other. There's little they can do. Only the Bardock squad and a handful of other Saiyans remain. But even in their Super Saiyan God states, their numbers are much smaller. Even Gine continues to fight, taking on Raditz. He defeats several Super Saiyan, but before he can kill them, Gine appears, pleading with Raditz to stop, to remember who he is. He's not a vicious killer anymore. He can't go back to being his old self. She wants him to remember the old times, when he played with the kids, and when they were revived, and they went around the universe together, meeting Goten and Trunks and everyone. He had changed for the better. This is what they had fought for. But Raditz goes in to attack her. Gine spreads her arms to embrace her son, telling him that she loves him, no matter what. Raditz's eyes widened, his pupils appear in once more. Gine's tears drop from her face and onto his fur. The anger that had overtaken Raditz fades away while he regains control over himself. He hugs his mother back, thanking her for saving him again. He looks onto the battle, saying that he doesn't know if he can help, that they may be in a losing battle. But Gine tells even if they don't win, they will have known that they defended their family, that they did all they could. They have to at least try. Raditz is finally convinced and asks his mother to come along with him. She smiles brightly. But everyone noticed one thing. Bardock was still struggling with the transformation. He was fighting against the corruption. Cumber's eyes widened. He hadn't seen this before. In fact, Bardock actually managed to break through the aura, his Super Saiyan 4 form remaining, but he could control it. He wasn't an evil Saiyan. Bardock turned to Cumber, saying, "You see, Cumber, us low-class Saiyans shouldn't be underestimated. You may have corrupted the elites, but me and Raditz, we both managed to break through your corruption. And soon, we will save all the other Saiyans here, starting with King Vegeta." Raditz arrived by his father's side. Cumber commanded his forces to attack, with Goku proudly looking on as his father rushed towards King Vegeta. Goku nodded at Vegeta, once again resuming their battle. Trunks and Goten fused into Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, and Gohan burst one more time into Super Saiyan Blue. All of them inspired by Bardock to continue the fight. Gohan versus Trunks, Gotenks versus a variety of Saiyans. They all did their best, and from below, one Saiyan watched it all. He focused in on Raditz and Bardock, the father and son duo, the people who had been training him, his master and his rival. Seeing them work together break through the barriers made something snap within Broly. The fact that he could control himself. That's what he had been training for so long. And slowly, the aura dissipated from him as well. Broly returned. He could now control himself once more. But this Super Saiyan 4 state, it represented anger, hatred, all things that Broly was trying to get rid of. He snapped out of it and back to his regular Super Saiyan full power state. Bardock and Goku lead the charge against the Super Saiyan 4 army. Up until now, Cumber was just waiting by the sidelines, watching as the battle played on, but he knew he wouldn't be able to stay there for much longer. He watched as Broly approached his father, trying to tell him to calm down, that this isn't him, but Paragus was weak-minded. He wouldn't be able to take control of this himself. Broly locks eyes with Cumber. He knew that this was his doing. If they defeated that monster, then it would all be over. Broly charged towards Cumber, the final battle beginning. Future Trunks was a huge problem still, with Gohan and Gotenks pleading with him. He's a hero after all, a beacon of hope in this world. Even if his future was destroyed, his world still lives on within him and Mai. Future Trunks looks at Gohan, who reminds him so much of his former master. He thinks back to Mai, who was still waiting for him back on Earth. The time traveler finally came down, powering back down into his base form, gasping for air. He thanks Gohan and Gotenks for reminding him who he was, as Gine and a bewildered Beats show up after defeating one of the Super Saiyan 4s. With 5 pure-hearted Saiyans on deck, Gohan asks Trunks if he's ready to awaken his true power. Trunks agrees. They needed as much help as possible. Gohan, Goten, Kid Trunks, Gine, and Beats perform the God ritual on Trunks, granting him the power of Super Saiyan God. He takes his broken sword out, enveloping it with ki, declaring that he may not have been able to save his world, but he will save this one. As Broly and Cumber clash overhead, Trunks swings his sword once, slashing right through Cumber. He wasn't killed, but he was clearly surprised and hurt. Was he losing power as more and more people broke from his spell? But the most incredible matches were that of King Vegeta and Bardock, as well as Goku and Vegeta. The two pairs fought hard, with Bardock clearly having the upper hand against King Vegeta, but enjoying the fight nonetheless. The Super Saiyan 4 transformation was fairly similar in power to that of Super Saiyan God, but unlike Super Saiyan God and Blue, which are driven by calmness and unity with oneself, Super Saiyan 4 was driven by hatred, rage, and the animalistic instincts of the Saiyans. Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta was relentless against Goku, reminding him a lot of his battle against Ozaru long ago. Vegeta charges a giant blast that decimates half the arena, many Saiyans going down along with it, including Gohan, Trunks, and the kids. They are severely hurt by the surprise attack. Bardock sees what's happening, and he pleads with King Vegeta to stop the fight so they can help their sons, but the king tells him to shut up. The fate of his children is of no concern to him anymore. All he cares about is this fight, the feeling of dominating his opponent. Yelling at King Vegeta to wake up and look around, the king sees his son lost in rage, with Kid Trunks, Tarble, down on the ground, hurt from the blast. He remembers back to his time on Earth with his grandson and the emotions he felt when he first saw little Trunks and Vegeta turn into Super Saiyans. Gine pleads with King Vegeta to see the good that the Saiyan race had brought to the universe. For once in his miserable life, he needs to save the future that his family had worked so hard for. Bardock puts a hand on King Vegeta's shoulder, locking eyes. In Bardock's eyes, King Vegeta sees the many battles that Vegeta had gone through, the fights that he had been told about, Frieza, Cell, Boo, and many more. He couldn't let this go to waste. King Vegeta finally calms down, as he realizes that Gine and Bardock and that useless brat Kakarot were right all along. King Vegeta stops fighting as the two fathers fly towards their rampaging sons, with Gine alongside them. Goku rolled his eyes at the sight of King Vegeta, realizing that his Vegeta truly had to be the most stubborn person in the universe to be the only one in his family to not turn back. Thankfully, Broly was keeping Cumber busy for now. They had a chance. Gohan, Goten, Gine, Bardock, Future Trunks, Kid Trunks, Tarble, and King Vegeta all face Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, each one of them getting at least one punch in, with Bardock and the King lifting their arms up and blasting away. This makes Vegeta crash down to the ground, where everyone stops him in place. Future Trunks and his kid counterpart hover over Vegeta, telling him to not give in, that Babidi is not in control anymore. He never will be again. He shouldn't ever let anyone control him. Vegeta smiles, finally breaking through the dark aura, but something curious was going on. Both him and King Vegeta remained in Super Saiyan 4. Everyone else but Bardock, that had been taken in by the spell, had returned back to their base form, as Bardock and the others regroup to plan out a fight against the rest of the Saiyans and Cumber. King Vegeta stays behind. Gohan notices this, staying along with him. King Vegeta wonders why him, Vegeta, and Bardock were the only ones to remain in Super Saiyan 4. Even after the spell was broken, Gohan hypothesizes that elite pure-hearted Saiyans were the ones to keep that transformation, but King Vegeta said that didn't explain Bardock. Gohan acknowledged this, and King Vegeta continued.
Bardock, you're quite impressive. I didn't even stand a chance against Cumber and his aura. You're the only one who could. I think I finally understand how a genius like myself can't surpass you. I thought it was because of the love of your family. I thought your drive to protect allowed you to take advantage of your capabilities. This may have been a reason, but I too have been this driven. I fought to do as I wished, because I missed being the Saiyan I once was, killing my enemies, feeding my pride, taking back what Frieza stole from us. But Bardock, you're different, because you do fight to protect others, but you also fight with pride, with hope, because you absolutely cannot lose, and will not give in to any tyrant ever again. This is what cost you to break through your limits. So when Cumber was trying to take him over, he could simply remind himself of what he was fighting for. And he saw something in the Saiyan race that no one else could. And maybe it's something that he now realizes as well. The Saiyan race doesn't have to be all peaceful, but it doesn't have to be all about destruction either. The division we caused didn't mean anything, because Bardock knew all along. He is a low-class warrior with the pride of an elite. Go, Bardock. You are number one.
Vegeta thanks everyone, saying that it was their combined voices that brought him back to reality. King Vegeta, arriving by them, scoffs, telling that when this is all over, he'd like to go to that amusement park that his grandson kept talking about. Vegeta smiles, as both he and his father charge their ki, their Super Saiyan 4 forms, in full display. Goku says that he's curious about that new furry form too, and says that he'd like to learn how to use it, but Vegeta tells him that maybe they should stick to Super Saiyan God. That's when Bardock thinks of something. Super Saiyan God? Super Saiyan 4? Bardock looked at his hands, with Super Saiyan Blue Goku on his left side and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta on his right. It was obvious what he needed to do. As King Vegeta said, a low-class warrior with the pride of an elite. As he watched the battle unfold, Bardock thought of everything he has been through. His friends, his family. He would never let any of this go to waste. With all of his might, he focused his ki, the godly power that had been gifted to him by his family. He felt it, his body heat increasing rapidly, and his strength powering up. Though Goku, Vegeta, and the rest were doing very well against Cumber now, he was still sending a large number of soldiers against them. But once the roar of an Ozaru was heard, they all looked back at the blinding red aura. The Super Saiyan 4 transformation now had red hair, similar to that of Super Saiyan God. Could this be Bardock's limit breaker? All the Saiyans stopped in their place. As Bardock took steps towards Cumber, the two stared each other down, one representing the evil of the Saiyans, and one representing the good. Goku and Vegeta stood behind Bardock, putting their hands on his shoulders. They were ready now. Without hesitation, Bardock uppercutted Cumber up to the sky. Cumber was completely taken by surprise. He couldn't even react. Bardock pointed his arm up, firing a barrage of ki bullets. Gohan, Goten and Trunks, and future Trunks followed those bullets. And as they hit Cumber, the four of them smashed them back down to the ground. And as he was coming down, Goku and Vegeta fired a Kamehameha and a Gallic gun respectively. As he was thrown back, King Vegeta grabbed him by the legs and slammed him against the ground, creating a huge crater. As Cumber opened his eyes, he saw Bardock up in the sky, his fist full of ki. In it, Bardock saw his squad: Gohan, Goten, Trunks, Vegeta, Broly, Raditz, Kakarot, even King Vegeta, everyone who had been there for him along the way. And above all, Gine. Bardock screamed at the top of his lungs, "It's over!" The Saiyan rushing down to the ground, punching right into Cumber's chest. The huge imagery of an Ozaru showing up behind him. The Ozaru morphed into a dragon that came back, crashing down. There was a huge explosion that dragged everyone away, and as it dissipated into sparkles, everyone realized that Cumber had disintegrated along with it, the red mist being replaced by stardust. Finally, the balance of the Saiyan race had been achieved, and slowly every one of the possessed Saiyans went back to normal. Following the civil war that nearly tore the Saiyan race apart, Planet Vegeta began to rebuild. As promised, the Saiyan caste system was abolished, and sweeping reforms were enacted to feed, house, and heal the Saiyans affected by the war and the decades of pain caused by the system. People started to mend their relationships with one another. Although some people weren't entirely convinced about the new direction they were going, they decided that the only way for the Saiyan race to survive was to stand in unity. Paragus and the other rebels were charged for their crimes, but rather than being executed or placed in a dungeon for life, they were placed in rehabilitation programs. Paragus was placed in a team of former elites, mid-class and low-class Saiyans, across the galaxy to reconnect planets that they had once waged war on, in order to help them rebuild. Paragus was shocked to hear that their leader was none other than his own son, Broly. He was bitter at first, but grew to like the work, and even the most stubborn of elites began to change. He saw the kindness displayed by his son, and took it as an inspiration. Despite his old age, Paragus was starting to see something that he had never seen before: hope. Hope for his people and the future. Paragus spent the rest of his life working to rebuild friendly relationships with other civilizations, healing the wounds of the past. The Z fighters prepared to go home, with King Tarble declaring that he isn't ready to be a leader just yet, and resigning. The Saiyans need a strong leader with an even stronger heart. The pair look over to Bardock, asking him if he'd like to be the king this time. Bardock is quiet at first, but declines. He still doesn't want to be king. It's just such a hassle. Instead, why don't they get rid of the monarchy altogether? Maybe they can try something else, like a republic? Instead of a single king making the decisions, a group of their best and brightest Saiyans could work with the people. King Tarble and his father gasp, but as King Vegeta barks at Tarble that such a thing had never been attempted before, Bardock grins, saying that there's no better time than the present. Their sons were able to change the futures before. It was time now that the Saiyan race forges a new path for a better tomorrow. Bardock and the king stretch out their hands, shaking them and smiling. King Vegeta decides to return to Earth with them, but only for a time. He plans to return to planet Vegeta and fix the mistakes of the past by helping the Saiyan race rebuild. He also wants to assist in changing the government. When Bardock announces the removal of the monarchy and the birth of a new republic, the people cheered. On the seats of the new republic were Bardock, King Vegeta, Prince Vegeta, Broly, Tora, and Gine. With a Senate composed of many diverse Saiyans from different backgrounds and classes, they would work together to create a new dynasty for the Saiyan race, though almost everyone still referred to King Vegeta as King out of respect. Future Trunks decides to move to planet Vegeta with Future Mai, rather than find an alternate future to live in. Trunks believes that he and Mai can help the Saiyans rebuild and create a new home for themselves, while staying close to their friends. And as they get some time to rest, Bardock, King Vegeta, and Gine sit all together, looking from the broken castle up to the sky as the sun emerges. Goku comes up from behind them, telling them that they still have work to do. Bardock wonders what his son is on about, and Goku explains that he may have made a mistake, because they are about to compete in a multiversal tournament, and he needs their help. Bardock and King Vegeta are about to deny the invitation, but then look at each other, realizing that through all these changes, they're still Saiyans at heart, and love a new challenge. Love meeting new strong foes, and like seeing which one of them is the strongest. They nod at each other as they turn back around to look at the sky. But that's a story for later, because for now, we look into the future, where a small shrine sits on the top of the mountain where the castle was built. A little boy who looks a lot like Kid Goku praying to the shrine as someone comes up from behind him, placing a hand on his shoulder. The little boy turns around to see his grandmother, Pan, telling him that it's time to head out and finish the rest of their trip. Goku Jr. smiles and waves goodbye to the shrine of his ancestors as they step out onto the street as a massive, sprawling city appears in front of them. Planet Vegeta, now renamed Planet Sadala many years ago, was the crown jewel of the North Galaxy, a renowned homeworld for the mighty Saiyan Republic, a melting pot for aliens all over the universe, but the home to the Saiyans, the greatest peacekeeping force in Universe 7. Grandma Pan tells Goku Jr. that they still need to meet up with the Briefs at the fancy new restaurant, as Goku Jr. yells out in delight. Goku Jr. jumps up with excitement, and Pan smiles, knowing that somewhere out there, her family and the rest of the Saiyans look on proudly.